Most longtime fans of the Diablo series are already intimately familiar with the rogue class and their story during the events of Diablo 1, and the character's subsequent fall with a sisterhood in the wake of Andariel's corruption of their sacred monastery and order during Act 1 of Diablo 2. However, an ongoing mystery was how did such a powerful and stalwart defender of the light actually become corrupted between games? Well, this week, ex-Blizzard North artist and lore writer for the Rogue, Phil Shank, shared on Twitter the direct events between Diablo 1 and 2 that lead to the Rogue's downfall.
My army will destroy you.
So without further ado, here is the untold truth of the tragic rise and fall of the Rogue from Diablo 1.
Sisters, there was no other way.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
During the darkening of Tristram, many adventurers ventured into the labyrinth to face the horrors below, though few came back alive to tell the tale. And in the end, a band of 3 consisting of the now infamous warrior, sorcerer known as Jazrith, and a rogue named Morena emerged victorious. Together, they managed to brave the perils of the labyrinth and hellish cavities below, triumphing against the forces of hell and even, finally, felling the Lord of Terror himself, Diablo, but at an unseen terrible cost.
How could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own sword, be the burning terror which drove me to hide here?
We now know, thanks to Diablo 2, none of the party of Diablo 1 escaped the incident unscathed. And thanks to Phil Shank's outline he posted on Twitter this week, we find out this was the first piece of lore he had written for Diablo 2, and that the idea and story that the rogue from Diablo 1 came back tainted to her sisterhood, making her susceptible to the great evil's deception, and ultimately outlines the fall of the rogues, and the excerpt directly reads: "When the sisters of the Sightless Eye who had fought Diablo under Tristram returned, they had fought ferociously and gained in strength and prowess considerably. Bolstered by their triumph, some thought that the time had come for the Order to rise in stature beyond the strict traditions of the Sightless Eye. Their horizons, it seemed, were expanding as never before into new realms of possibility. One rogue named Morena, perhaps the greatest veteran of the battles, gained permission to establish a formal assembly that would develop into a new school. This institution would study the mystic arts of sorcery and alchemy in order to increase both their physical and spiritual power. Many things had been learned in the trials against the demonic forces, and they acquired ancient and powerful artifacts, which hinted at undiscovered powers. Mystic tomes and scrolls revealed potent energies that had never been known before. The sisters were determined to harness these things and use them to further the cause of the sisterhood. The new assembly quickly developed revolutionary techniques to improve their skills in combat. They learned to delve farther into their spiritual center to harness powerful energies that could be focused into physical speed and power. They formulated elixirs and potions to heighten their perceptions and strengthen their bodies. They discovered arcane rituals that could be used to protect them in battle and summon terrible spirits to their aid. There were some in the Order who were concerned with these advances. They were fearful that the assembly was moving too fast and that such powerful things might not be able to be fully controlled. They asked Morena to slow down the pace of her endeavor so that they might more fully comprehend the full ramifications of the powers they were bringing on themselves. Morena was a proud and powerful woman, and she was excited and tantalized by the things she had glimpsed, but her respect for the elders of the Order held greater sway, and she agreed to their warnings. It was then she received a vision. In her dream, the matron of the Sightless Eye herself appeared to her and told her that she need not be afraid, promising that a new age was upon the sisterhood and that they must waste no time in preparing for greater trials. There was an incantation, the matron claimed, that would enable Morena to provide guidance to her people directly. The assembly was to be the new voice of the Eye, and she would bestow great gifts upon her daughters. The Eye revealed to Morena a vision of great enemy who was beginning to move against her people. Great sacrifices were to be made, but the sisterhood would emerge triumphant, but only if the Eye were to be unveiled. Morena and the assembly decided that the Eye, above all else, must be heeded. They moved in secret because they knew the rest of the sisterhood was not prepared for the responsibility that was bestowed upon them. The incantation was a long ordeal that involved many rituals in sequence. It required that the sisters grasp the deepest fears and hatreds and harness them into pure power to use against the forces of the approaching evil. There were many meditations and potions that promised to strengthen and alter their bodies as never before. When the final ritual was performed, the sisters were completely transformed. Their true queen appeared to them in a visage of a great and powerful woman. She was a glorious sight, and the new sisterhood praised the final arrival of their blessed mother. The queen then told them the time for their blindness was no longer. A new reign was beginning that would bring great woe and anguish to their enemies. She revealed her name was now to be Andariel, Queen of Vengeance, and as a final gift, she bestowed the power of true sight. Suddenly, it seemed to Morena and her sisters that their lids were finally open to the truth, as she took on a new name, Bloodraven, commanding her newly empowered rogues. All was at last revealed to them, and the enemy was clearly visible. Their fears and doubts left them in an instant, and they were left with only the ferocious certainty that the blood of their enemies must run freely.
My rogue scouts have just reported an abomination in the monastery graveyard. Apparently, Andariel is not content to take only our living. Bloodraven, one of our finest captains in the battle against Diablo at Tristram, was also one of the first to be corrupted by Andariel. Now you'll find her in the monastery graveyard, raising our dead as zombies. We cannot abide this defilement. If you are truly our ally, you will help us destroy her.
During Act 1 of Diablo 2, upon clearing the Den of Evil, we're informed of the now corrupted Bloodraven and her treachery.
Bloodraven fought valiantly against Diablo in the catacombs beneath Tristram. She was never quite the same afterwards. It is now obvious that she brought an evil influence back with her.
It's then we are given the second quest of Act 1, named Sister's Burial Ground, where we're tasked with the macabre job of putting down their forsaken sister before she can raise an army of the undead.
I sense great sorrow and misery.
Battling through scores of corrupted rogues and undead, we face the rogue, once known as Morena, under the guise of Bloodraven and the demonic influence of Andariel herself.
Rest in peace, sister.
When we finally finish the job, we're greeted by the somber residents of the rogue encampment once more and hope that finally their sister's soul has been given respite from their tortured unrest, as she received a dark gift for her attempt to free Sanctuary of the Prime Evils, who it seems even in defeat will never allow those who err them to escape unscathed.
I can hardly believe that you've defeated Bloodraven. Though she was once my closest friend, I pray that her tortured spirit remains banished forever. You have earned my respect, stranger, and the allegiance of the rogues. I have placed several of my best warriors at your disposal.